Let's go to one more story. King Saul. 1 Samuel chapter 15. You know, King Saul at this time, he had already been making some serious errors as king. In 1 Samuel 13, 2 chapters earlier, Samuel had delayed to come to the camp and where they were waiting to go and fight. And so what Saul decided was to sacrifice a burnt offering, and it was not for him to do. No king was allowed to do this. They were all waiting for Samuel to come and offer the burnt offering. And, you know, as a result, God was very displeased with King Saul. And that was back in 1 Samuel 13. In 1 Samuel 15, God gives King Saul one last test. Let's go there. 1 Samuel 15, starting in verse 1. Samuel also said unto Saul, The Lord sent me to anoint thee to be king over his people, over Israel. Now therefore hearken thou unto the voice of the words of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way, when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. The instruction is very clear. God wants Saul to go and destroy the Amalekites and everything, from the women to the children to the oxen to the sheep, all the cattle. Nothing is to be left alive. And I'm not going to figure out why God said that. That was not the point of our study this morning. But the instruction is very clear. It's very specific. But what happens? God gives Saul the victory. However, verse 9, But Saul and the people spared Agag, and the best of the sheep, and of the oxen, and of the fatlings, and the lambs, and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. But everything that was vile and refuse, that they destroyed. Did Saul obey? No, he didn't. And when Samuel arrives at the scene, he confronts Saul the king, and he is still in denial. And he gives a good reason as to why he left all the cattle, all the animals alive. Look at how Saul responds to Samuel when Samuel says, You did not obey God. Look at what happens. Verse 15, And Saul said, They, speaking of the people, they have brought them from the Amalekites. For the people spared the best of the sheep and of the oxen to sacrifice unto the Lord thy God, and the rest we have utterly destroyed. First, he blames the people. Can you believe it? As if he, the king, had no power to stop them. But secondly, he says that the reason why they spared all this cattle is so that they could sacrifice to God. Good intention. We want to give God the very best. Good desire, good motive, right? Yet when Samuel tells Saul that he disobeyed, he's still adamant that he did obey and just left the best sacrifice to God. Look at how Samuel replies. Verse 22. Hath the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices, as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. Samuel, he basically tells him, God does not desire all these sacrifices. You had good intentions. You had good desires. And the verse, it rings clear to us today. Does God take pleasure in your good intentions? Especially when it goes against the will of God? God prefers obedience over our good motives. Obedience is better than all the very best of intentions that we can ever have, as we're even thinking about God for all these things. But God says, no, that's not what I wanted. I wanted you to destroy everything. I didn't want you to sacrifice a single thing to me, God says. You had the best intentions, but that was not my instruction. That was not my desire. That's not what I wanted you to do. And the question that we must have for ourselves today is this. Friends, are our thoughts in line with God's thoughts? Are our ways His ways? So it starts off with the thoughts, the intentions, the desires, yes, but then His ways. Are His ways our ways? Are we doing what He wants us to do? Are we following His instruction and not just, oh God, I love you, I'm doing the very best I can, even though I'm going against what you want me to do? You know, there's a saying that goes like this: the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We may mean well, friends, but the end product may be disastrous. Our actions might show that it wasn't such a good idea after all.